speaking of singing, I'm gratified to see that only 5,400 of you even have a view on the Oasis reunion. For people of my age, Oasis were only ever a Beatles tribute band, and we thought they'd long ago faded into the obscurity they richly deserve, but they're making a comeback. The only thing notable about them is the mulish obduracy of the relationship between the two siblings, Liam and Noel Gallagher. So we asked, it was a pun, will the Oasis reunion turn into another Gallagher brothers fallout? Definitely, or maybe. Luckily, nobody seems to care. Well, our editor's much younger now than he was back then, and he thought it would be a hip and trendy poll to post. Well, he kens knew that that is not true. What do you make of a 3-day ceasefire in Gaza so that the children there can all be inoculated against polio? First of all, it's only happening because polio is so highly contagious that you can't confine it to the Gaza concentration camp, and the spores of it are already traveling in the air, no doubt into Palestine proper, nowadays known as Israel, at least for the time being. I favor the Holy Land myself, though it isn't feeling particularly peaceful or holy this evening. A 3-day ceasefire to allow polio injections. Many of you are too young to even know what polio is. It used to finish you up in an iron lung. It was like a big iron box that you lay in for the rest of your life. It helped you to breathe. People my age have seen polio epidemics in our own country, and we were all given a sugar lump to make sure that we didn't catch it. That sugar lump containing the very vaccine which is now going to be in a 3-day dash injected into every child in Gaza. And then they get back to the Holocaust. They get back to the mass killing of Palestinian children on a scale never before documented in human history. That's an important point to make. It's true that there have been many Holocausts before the Holocaust and several Holocausts after. And the truth is that in terms of scale, this Holocaust does not measure up to some others, but it's pretty damn big. I've just seen from the legendary Max Blumenthal a scaling up of the Gaza death toll according to head of population in the United States. It would mean, the number of people killed in Gaza would mean 6.5 million people dead in the United States of America, and millions more maimed, mutilated, wounded, but this time with absolutely no hospital able to take them in the United States. If you've got the health insurance, you'd at least be seen in a hospital. 6.5 million dead Americans. That's the equivalent, head for head, of the death toll in Gaza. Some people are unmoved. It can only be because they just don't look, because nobody who looks could possibly be unmoved, unless, of course, they regard Palestinian children as subhumans. And I'm afraid to say there are not a few of those. But whether they'll be moved, whether the so-called international community will be moved about what's been happening all day today in the West Bank, where there's no Hamas, there was no October 7th breakout from the West Bank. The West Bank containing holy Jerusalem, containing holy Bethlehem, is now under a rampage, not this time, of dangerous, bedraggled, armed to the teeth illegal settlers. No, this is the official Israeli Defense Force, which is swarming in towns like Jenin, like Nablus. It's swarming through refugee camps like Balata in Nablus, the camp in Jenin, the camp in Tulkarem. They are swarming in their thousands with tanks and armored personnel, carriers, and even military airplanes. They're invading, again, a place they have illegally occupied since 1967, which they were told only a month ago by the International Court of Justice, the highest court in the world, the highest. No higher judicial authority exists. They were told to get out of the West Bank. And now, without any further demur or delay, instead, they have announced more and more illegal settlements. And now, the Israeli army has begun telling people in specific parts of the West Bank that they should temporarily relocate. What does temporarily mean? When you're actually in a camp in your own country and have been since 1967. And where are you going to temporarily relocate to? They've already killed 11 people today. Overnight, there will be many, many more, I'll warrant. And nobody does jack about it. No word from the courts. No word from the ICC. No warrants anyway. No word from the Security Council of the United Nations. No word from the British Foreign Office, which maintains a consulate in Jerusalem. The consul wants her to come and rescue me in Nablus from an Israeli jail. He arrived in a Land Rover, flying the Union Jack, and demanded that Her Britannic Majesty's subject, member of the British Parliament no less, should be released. But not Jack has come out of that consulate, or our embassy in Tel Aviv, or the Foreign Office in London. And I'll warrant it's the same all over the world. Total silence as a pogrom takes place on an occupied people who are, I keep reminding you, the legal responsibility of the international community. Ipso facto, if this is illegally occupied territory, as declared by the United Nations Security Council, which in resolutions 242 and 338, more than 55 years ago, declared must be returned. All these people in the West Bank are our legal responsibility. And not only can we not do anything for them, we nowadays can't say anything about them. And if we do, we run the very real risk of being voted out of office as anti-Semites, no less. This on the day that AIPAC announced that they have spent in 2024 alone, and it's still August, AIPAC have spent $100 million influencing the elections in the United States of America. They talk about China, they talk about Russia, they talk about Iran. AIPAC is boasting, it's popping the champagne corks to mark its $100 million barrel ceiling that it has just burst through. But there's so much else to talk about. Pavel Durov, the founder and owner of one of the world's biggest and most important sites, platforms, a big tech magnate worth $14 billion, a citizen of France, was lured to France to have dinner with the President of the Republic. That's why he went there, to have dinner with the man who ordered his arrest and his incarceration this past 4 days in a jail cell. Because, it said, bad people have made use of his platform. Even though Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and 5 others have more evidence against them of their platform being used for sordid and even illegal practices. They're not even in the top 8, Telegram. But their owner, a French citizen, on his way to a dinner with the President of France, has been arrested, held for 4 days, interrogated. God knows what happened to him. Devil's Island might well be the end result of it all, unless, of course, he's agreed to hand over all your personal information. Unless, of course, he's agreed to let the security services of the Five Eyes and more see the private messages of people on his platform who signed up for his platform on the promise that nobody else would ever be allowed to see them. We've all got a class action there, folks, if Durov has indeed handed over the keys to little Macron, who invited him like a mafia chief to a dinner in order to put him in irons. He may, of course, have stood up to the interrogation. He may, of course, be given a bail settlement that allows him to leave the country. We'll soon see. We'll be able to measure it. If the bail is set for a man of $14 billion with his own private jet at a parsimonious level, we'll know that they're letting him go. If the bail is set in the millions, if not the hundreds of millions, and he has to surrender his passports plural, because of course he's both a Russian and a UAE citizen also. What's this really all about? It's not about the fact that you can view pornography on Telegram. I'm assuming you can. I've never looked for it. It's not about the fact that somebody might be selling marijuana on Telegram. I don't know if you can or do that. I'm not interested and have never looked. But I already know what the real reason for it is. It is for the same reason that they banned TikTok in the United States. Because TikTok would not give the United States intelligence a back door into the lives of unsuspecting customers of TikTok. And that's the same reason they've shanghaied the owner of Telegram. Telegram, Elon Musk, Twitter, the banning of all kinds of people from the public square in direct proportion to the influence that they have amongst the public in putting their own point of view forward or in critiquing the view of the Western Empire. Scott Ritter, Richard Medhurst, and so many, many others banned, strangled by the big tech platforms. They don't like it that Rumble will not allow them to do that. They don't like it to the extent France has banned Rumble in the whole country. And the owner of Rumble has had to flee Europe. Imagine. The garden. Burroughs Garden. People like the owner of Rumble are fleeing from the continent of Europe for fear of the same fate that has befallen Pavel Durov. The protestations over human rights, rule of law, democracy are all so hollow now that nobody even speaks about them. No one in the mainstream media, that's for sure, no one in the mainstream media could possibly defend the wholesale slaughter of our civil liberties over these last couple of years in particular. Nobody could justify what is being done, so they simply ignore the fact that it is happening. Of course, this can partly all be dated to the beginning of the special military operation in the Ukraine. So how's that going? Well, in order to force the empire's treasuries to pony up even more billions, Zelensky staged a PR exercise, the Battle of the Kursk Bulge. He invaded Russia, in Kursk of all places. He sent thousands of troops in to reinforce them, all of whom are now encircled, thousands of whom are now dead, all of whom will very soon be prisoners. They counted on, they said, diverting Russian attention away from the Donbass front into Kursk. But the Russians, it's not their first rodeo, you know. They've been invaded many, many times before through the territory of Ukraine. So they rope-a-dope them. They've encircled them, and they will crush them at their will, but they did not take one single soldier away from the Donbass front. And the reports this evening are that the Ukrainian lines in the Donbass are collapsing like blancmange before the relentless pressing forward of the Russian armed forces. Soon, Russia will be at the river Dnieper, which I always thought, regular viewers already know, would be the dividing line between a pro-Western Ukrainian rump state and a Ukraine that had been liberated and had rejoined Russia in the east of the territory, where almost every person is a Russian person, a Russian-speaking, culturally Russian, historically, familiarly Russian population would return to Novorus, the new Russia. But I no longer believe that Russia will stop at the river Dnieper. I no longer believe that Russia will allow any single mile of seaboard in the south to the Ukrainian rump state. And I no longer believe that Russia will accept any regime in Kiev other than a regime that is umbilically tied to them, that is Finlandized in the way that those of you old enough to remember the Cold War will know what I mean. It will be a government nominally Ukrainian but beholden to Russia, because all of the evidence is proving every day the thesis of the Russian President Putin, who said that Ukraine was merely the proxy, that the invader of Russia is, in fact, NATO. Which leads me in 1 minute to talk about the brand new treaty announced today by Sir Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, and little soldier Schultz, with Anna Baerbock hanging around in the wings. We've got a new treaty, don't you know, with Germany. What could possibly go wrong? It's not, of course, a treaty with Germany. It's effectively a new relationship with the European Union. Keir Starmer doesn't have the guts to say he's scrapping Brexit. He doesn't have the guts to admit that we're on our way back into the fading, failing, flailing European Union. He's just doing it behind your back. He thinks you're a fool. Maybe you are. It's the mother of all talk shows.